It has been a week of silence, speculation, and unanswered questions. And now, at the center of it all, a pathology report has finally spoken.
Today we are here at the Funeral Home to perform an autopsy on the body of the late Honorable Cyrus Jirongo, who passed on the other day under circumstances which raise a lot of questions.
The late former cabinet minister Cyrus Jirongo died from severe crash injuries to the chest sustained during a road accident in Naivasha last week. That is the official conclusion following a post-mortem examination conducted in Nairobi.
A pathologist representing the family of the late Cyrus Jirongo. And we have looked at the body of the late Jirongo, and it had multiple injuries. There were multiple fractures. There was a fracture involving the right hand, two fractures involving the right hand, and then there were fractures of both lower limbs. The lower limbs are the legs. There was a crash injury to the chest with multiple ribs fracture. There was perforation of the heart with the rupture of most of the major vessels that connect the heart. There were also bleeding into the chest cavity, and also crash injuries going to the abdomen with the crash of the liver, with also bleeding into the abdominal cavity. There was also transection of the spinal cord at the thoracic level, and as a result of our examination, we formed an opinion that the late Cyrus Jirongo died as a result of a crash injury to the chest, the abdomen, and also spinal injuries due to blunt force trauma.
On Wednesday, December 17th, government pathologist Johansen Oduor stood alongside pathologists appointed by the Jirongo family at Lay Funeral Home. Together, they addressed the media, releasing findings that laid out in clinical detail the extent of the injuries that claimed the life of one of the Kenya's most prominent political figures.
So, of course, the family asked me to help identify the pathologist, which we identified Mr. Ndungo, Dr. Ndungo, to be with us. I attended the postmortem, and as a heart doctor, I witnessed very severe injury to the heart. The left ventricle was ruptured. The main pipe from the heart called the outer heart disconnected with the heart, and those injuries are not compatible with life. Probably when that happened, you only had 3 minutes to go. We are very sorry for the family and all the associates, and we feel so saddened that such a young man, he was actually my age mate.
According to the pathologists, the injuries were the result of blunt force trauma consistent with a high-impact road crash. The chest and abdominal regions bore the most severe damage, and these injuries were determined to be the primary cause of death. The report paints a picture of extensive internal trauma. Jirongo sustained multiple fractures across his body. There were 2 fractures on his right hand. Both lower limbs were fractured. The ribcage suffered multiple fractures, compromising the chest structure entirely. Most critically, the pathologist confirmed a perforation of the heart. This was accompanied by extensive chest injuries and massive bleeding into the chest cavity. The crash injuries did not stop at the chest, they extended into the abdominal region, compounding the trauma. In their words, the findings showed multiple rib fractures, perforation of the heart, extensive chest injuries, bleeding within the chest cavity, and crash injuries extending into the abdomen. These injuries, they said, were fatal.
This is an investigation which is ongoing. Remember, postmortem is just part of a wide investigation. So we have concluded, though we've taken some samples also for analysis, because there have been a lot of speculations ongoing. And other than what we've seen in the mortuary, we've taken samples for what is called toxicological analysis. The samples have been taken in sets, some which will be analyzed by our government chemists, and some which will be analyzed by the private pathologist on behalf of the family. So let's be patient and wait for what we'll see in the course of the investigation. We always take it also for DNA, yeah.
The The presence of both government and family-appointed pathologists was meant to ensure transparency and credibility. Their conclusions were consistent. There were no competing medical explanations. No alternative causes of death were presented.
You've heard that they have concurred in their reports. We have, of course, the government pathologists, and as I had promised yesterday, we as family and friends and committee, we said we must have two other pathologists, one who was nominated by the family through the family doctor, and another one through the committee that is steering this process. And the good news is that they have all concurred. We want to state that, of course, there have been so many questions, so many gaps, so many glaring gaps surrounding the death of our brother. And we've been saying we want questions to these many glaring gaps. The process that happened today is part of the process of giving us answers to these questions that we've been asking. Today we were doing a postmortem which has revealed to us the cause of death. Of course, there are other extraneous matters that are still being investigated by the DCI. We want to plead with everyone. I know the matter is very emotive.
And yet, even with this medical clarity, the questions surrounding the circumstances of the accident itself refuse to go away. This confirmation comes even as speculations continue to rise following contradicting reports about the crash and a noticeable lack of witnesses. Accounts of how the accidents occurred have varied, and to date, there has been no clear public narrative that reconciles these differences.
Hatuwezi kuwa na Waluya 65 wanasafiri wakienda nyumbani wapate accident ambayo ndugu yao amekufa, alafu hakuna jina hata moja. Tumeambiwa masaa 72 baada ya kifo ya Jirongo, hakuna jina hata moja kutoka kwa Climax bus. Tungependa kuambiwa hiyo basi ya Climax ilikuwa imebeba wakina nani.
No incident eyewitnesses have stepped forward to clearly describe the moments before or after the crash. No detailed reconstruction has been publicly released, and that silence has fueled debate, suspicion, and intense public scrutiny. For many Kenyans, the pathology report answers the question of how Cyrus Jirongo died, but not the question of what exactly happened on that road in Naivasha.
Mimi naitwa Teras Kamau. Mimi ni dereva wa Climax Coaches bus. Nimefanyia Climax Coaches miaka 8. Na ile ilitokea usiku ya leo, ilitokea accident baada ya basi yangu na Mercedes. Mercedes ilikuwa inatoka kwa mafuta petrol station, na mimi ninatoka Nairobi nikienda Busia. Mercedes wakati aliingia kwa hakugifwe, aliingia kwa mafuta kwa barabara na akaona upande yake gari zimeweka jam. Akaamua kuja penye niko, tukakutana kichwa na yeye.
The medical findings rule out ambiguity about the injuries. They confirmed a violent impact, one strong enough to fracture limbs, collapse the chest, perforate the heart, and cause fatal internal bleeding. These are injuries consistent with severe crushing force. But as investigations continue, attention now shifts away from the mortuary and back to the crash scene itself. How did the accident happen? Why do reports conflict? And why are there no clear eyewitness accounts? Until those questions are addressed, the post-mortem report stands as a partial answer, definitive in medicine, but incomplete in context. What is clear is that Cyrus Jirongo's death was not caused by illness or natural causes. It was the result of catastrophic injuries sustained in a road crash. What remains unclear is the full story behind that crash. As the nation absorbs the medical facts, pressure continues to mount for transparency, clarity, and accountability around the circumstances that led to his tragic end. Newsroom, Maisha TV, Reader Kering Chebet.